Okay, so you're here with us because you want to get smart fast, right, on what matters in this wild world of online information.
That's right.
So much coming at us all the time.
It really is.
And today, we're diving deep into a piece of that for you. And that is, how reliably can you trust these new AI search engines when it comes to news?
Yeah, that's a huge question everyone is asking.
Huge.
And you're absolutely right. We're all navigating this information overload, right? And AI promises to be that shortcut.
Yeah.
But what happens when that shortcut takes you down the wrong path? Or doesn't even acknowledge where it got its directions from in the first place?
Or tell you how it even got there.
Exactly.
That's what we're digging into today.
Yeah.
And to get to the bottom of this, we have got a fascinating study just out on March 6th, 2025, from the Tow Center for Digital Journalism at Columbia Journalism Review.
Okay.
These guys know their stuff, and they put 8 different AI search engines through a really rigorous test.
Wow.
Our mission in this deep dive is to extract the key insights from their report and understand, what does it mean for how AI is delivering news to you.
I'm ready. Let's go.
And I got to say, some of what they found is genuinely surprising. Like, who would have thought that those premium paid-for chatbots might actually be more confidently wrong when they get something wrong?
More confidently wrong. That's fascinating.
Yeah, so let's unpack this whole thing.
Okay, let's get into it.
When you look at the study, what really jumps out at you?
Well, I think for me, what immediately jumps out is just the sheer scale of the problem that they uncovered, right? The headline finding is pretty stark. Across all these different AI chatbots, there was a significant struggle to answer questions accurately.
Yeah.
And maybe more concerning is they frequently offered incorrect or just completely made up answers instead of simply saying, hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't answer that.
The numbers really hit home, like across all 8 of these AI tools and all the questions they were asked. They got the answer wrong more than 60% of the time.
60.
You think about that.
That's wild.
Well, more often than not, you're getting a bump steer.
Yeah.
It wasn't even consistently bad across the different tools.
Right.
Some were way off.
Huh.
Like Perplexity, for example, had a 37% inaccuracy rate.
Okay.
Which isn't great. But then you see Grok 3 was wrong. A staggering 94% of the time.
94%. It's almost every single time.
Yeah. Did the study offer any theories as to why Grok 3 performed so dramatically lower than all the others?
Yeah, that's a good question. And they didn't really dive into the specific why behind each platform.
Right.
But I think the sheer difference really suggests that there are some fundamentally different approaches and training data being used.
Makes you wonder what data they're even training this on.
Yeah. And what they did highlight, though, was not just the errors themselves, but the confidence with which these incorrect answers were being presented.
Oh, that's the scary part.
It's like they weren't hedging their bets. They were delivering falsehoods as if they were gospel truth.
Yeah, it's like...
You know what I mean?
An expert with no expertise.
Exactly.
The study points out these tools rarely use phrases that signal uncertainty.
Yeah.
Like this might be, or I'm not sure, but...
Right, like a normal person would.
Yeah. ChatGPT, for instance, got 134 answers wrong out of 200, but only signaled a lack of confidence 15 times.
15? That's so low.
Out of 134 wrong answers.
Wow.
So it just barrels ahead confidently incorrect.
Yeah.
The one exception they noted was Copilot, which actually declined to answer more questions than it provided answers for. So maybe that's being overly cautious, or maybe a more honest assessment of its limitations.
It's interesting. It suggests a different philosophy in its design. While these other chatbots seem determined to give an answer, any answer,
Right.
Copilot seems more willing to admit when it's just not sure.
Yeah.
And I think that raises an important question for the listener, which is, is it more helpful to receive a potentially wrong answer or no answer at all?
Right.
When you're looking for reliable information?
It's a tough call, isn't it?
It is a tough call.
Because you think you'd prefer no answer to a wrong one.
Yeah, you would think so.
Especially when you're really relying on it to get up to speed on a topic.
Right.
Which leads us to this really interesting and kind of counterintuitive finding they called the premium paradox.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
So tell us about that and what it means for someone who's considering paying for one of these services.
Well, this is where it gets really interesting because the study found that the premium paid versions of these chatbots like Perplexity Pro and Grok 3, even though they answered more prompts correctly overall than their free counterparts, they also had a higher rate of errors in the answers they did provide.
Wait, so you're saying if you shell out the money, you get more right answers, but when they're wrong, they're more wrong?
That's what the study found.
How does that even work?
Yeah, it's pretty counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But the researchers attribute this to the premium model's tendency to give definitive answers even when those answers are incorrect.
Oh, so they just don't want to say, I don't know.
It seems that way they seem less likely to admit uncertainty compared to the free versions.
Uh-huh.
So you might be getting more answers for your money.
Right.
But when they are wrong, they're delivered with this air of authority that can be super misleading.
Oh, that's so concerning because you assume that paying more would get you more reliability and accuracy, not more confidently delivered misinformation.
Right. It creates this illusion of trustworthiness that's not really earned.
Yeah, this unearned confidence, as the study calls it.
Yeah.
That's a really good phrase.
It is a good phrase.
It really does create a dangerous situation for you as a consumer of information.
Yeah, absolutely. And it speaks to this larger issue of trust, right? Which, it's not just about the accuracy of the information itself,
Yeah.
but also about how these AI tools are interacting with the very websites they're pulling information from.
Oh, that's a good point.
So let's talk about robots.txt, the robot exclusion protocol. For the listener to understand this, it's basically a set of instructions that website owners can put on their site to tell web crawlers, which are those automated systems used by search engines, and these AI tools, to scan and index the web, which parts of the site they should not access.
So it's like a keep out sign.
Kind of, yeah.
Right.
It's a way for publishers to maintain some control over their content.
Yeah, I mean, they might do this for various reasons.
Right.
To keep some pages private, manage their server load, or even try and monetize their content by keeping it behind a paywall so you might subscribe.
Exactly. It's a pretty widely accepted standard, although it's not legally binding.
Right.
And so the researchers looked at how these AI chatbots behaved with websites that had explicitly blocked their crawlers.
Like said, no, you can't come here.
That's right. And what they found, I think, is really revealing, especially for those chatbots that have publicly named their crawlers, like ChatGPT, Perplexity Pro, Copilot, and Gemini.
So they know who's coming knocking.
They do.
And it wasn't a clear picture, was it?
No, it wasn't.
You had instances where chatbots didn't answer questions from sites that allowed them access, which is strange in itself.
Yeah, you'd think they would,
Yeah.
But then you have the opposite, where they did provide answers sometimes correctly from publishers who had blocked them.
Yeah.
Perplexity Pro seemed to be a major culprit here, correctly, identifying nearly a third of excerpts from articles it shouldn't have had access to.
How is that even possible?
It raises questions about how they're accessing this information, when they've clearly been told not to.
What does that suggest about their approach to respecting those protocols that publishers put in place?
It's a good question.
I mean, it's like the digital equivalent of sneaking into a private event.
Yeah, it really is. And what was particularly interesting was the behavior of the free version of Perplexity.
Okay.
They correctly identified all 10 of the paywalled National Geographic excerpts.
Wow, all 10s.
Even though National Geographic has blocked Perplexity's crawlers and they have no formal agreement. So how are they accessing this information,
Yeah.
There were some reports last year, actually, from Rob Knight and Wired
Okay.
that suggested Perplexity might be ignoring these protocols.
So maybe that's how.
And interestingly, neither National Geographic nor Perplexity commented on this when the CJR reached out.
Oh, so they're just quiet.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, about the transparency and the ethical considerations there.
It really does. And it wasn't just Perplexity. The Press Gazette reported that the New York Times, which also blocks Perplexity, was actually their top referred news site in January.
Really?
Racking up a huge number of visits.
Wow.
So like impacting the metrics and potentially the revenue models that these news organizations are relying on.
Absolutely. Without the ability to opt out of this massive scraping of their content,
Right.
they can't effectively monetize their work.
Pay their journalists.
Yeah.
Which could have huge consequences.
Exactly.
Yeah. So ChatGPT, while answering fewer questions about blocked content overall compared to some of the others, it showed a tendency to give a wrong answer rather than no answer at all.
Oh, so they'd rather be wrong than silent?
Yeah, and then you have Copilot, which is in a unique position because it uses BingBot,
Right.
the same crawler as the Bing search engine.
Okay.
So if a publisher blocks BingBot, they're also opting out of Bing search results.
Yeah, makes sense.
So Copilot should theoretically have access to all the content, but it had the highest rate of declined answers.
Interesting.
So it was kind of a puzzle why it would be so hesitant.
Yeah, it is.
And Gemini's behavior was interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
Even when a publisher permitted its crawler, Google extended Gemini would decline to answer questions if the excerpt was about politics,
Really?
citing its training limitations and suggesting that you just try Google search instead.
Wow, so a specific filter on politics.
Yeah, it's like a very specific and kind of arbitrary filter
Yeah.
being applied, which could limit the kind of information you're getting. Yeah, and this really, as Danielle Coffey from the News Media Alliance put it, without the ability to opt out of this massive scraping of their content, publishers can't effectively monetize their work and pay journalists.
Yeah, that's a huge concern for the industry
It is.
and for the future of journalism.
Absolutely. Now, beyond just accessing the content, this study also looked at what happens when these AI tools actually cite their sources.
Yeah.
And that seems to be another area with problems
Yeah, huge problem.
that could impact your ability to verify the information.
Right.
So what do they find there?
Well, they found a pretty common tendency across all the tools to simply cite the wrong article.
Oh, wow.
DeepSeek was a particularly egregious example, misattributing sources in 115 out of 200 queries.
115 out of 200.
That's more than half.
That's crazy.
I know. So the publisher's hard work is being credited to someone else entirely, making it really difficult to find the original source.
And even when they did manage to identify the correct article, they often failed to provide a proper link back to the original source.
Yeah, this was a big one.
Instead, they linked to syndicated versions on sites like Yahoo News or AOL.
Right.
Even in cases where the publisher had a licensing deal with the AI company.
Yeah.
Perplexity Pro, despite having this partnership with the Texas Tribune, did this for 3 out of 10 queries.
Wow.
So how does that impact the reader?
Well, it's a two-pronged problem.
Okay.
First, the original publishers who invested all the resources in creating this content,
Yeah.
they're being deprived of visibility and traffic.
Right.
And second, as we talked about earlier, if a publisher doesn't want their content used, it might still appear misattributed on a syndicated site.
Yeah.
Which further undermines their control.
So you're saying it's like the AI is saying, yeah, I found this information, but I'm going to point you over there, not to the original.
Exactly.
And then you have the issue of just like fabricated or broken URLs.
Yeah, that was a big one too.
Which makes it impossible to verify the information.
Right. Like, what's the point of a citation if it doesn't even work?
Yeah, it defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Gemini and Grok 3 were particularly bad with this.
They were.
More than half the citations from both led to error pages.
Yeah. Grok 3 was really problematic. 154 out of 200 citations led to dead ends.
Oh, wow.
Even when Grok correctly identified an article, the URL just didn't work.
So frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
Mark Howard from Time Magazine really hit the nail on the head.
He did.
When he emphasized how critical it is for publishers to control how their brand is represented online and to have transparency.
Transparency is key.
About where and how their content is showing up.
Absolutely. These broken or incorrect links just undermine that completely.
Yeah, you can't trust what you're seeing.
Right.
And Braun Maher from Press Gazette pointed out, click-through traffic from these tools might be a small piece of the pie right now.
Yeah.
But by discouraging those clicks, these platforms are basically profiting from the work of news organizations without providing any compensation.
Yeah, it's like they're freeloading.
Yeah, and so you would think that if an AI company has a licensing deal with a news publisher, that would guarantee more accurate citations.
You would think so, right?
They have a direct pipeline to the content.
Right.
But the study found that even those deals weren't a magic bullet for accuracy.
No, they weren't.
So Time Magazine, for instance, deals with both OpenAI and Perplexity. And was among the most accurately identified publishers.
Okay.
But even they weren't at 100%.
Wow, so even with a deal, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It really highlights the complexity of this issue.
Yeah, and then you have the San Francisco Chronicle, which is part of Hearst's content partnership with OpenAI.
Okay.
ChatGPT only correctly identified 1 out of 10 excerpts from the Chronicle, and even then it didn't provide a working URL.
Wow.
Hearst declined to comment on those findings.
Of course they did.
It seems like even with direct access, the AI is still struggling.
It really does.
And these findings really paint a consistent picture, don't they?
They do.
Of the current state of AI search and news.
Yeah, and the study points out these results align with their previous research on ChatGPT.
Oh, really? So it's not getting better?
It doesn't seem to be.
These aren't isolated incidents.
Right. It seems like systemic challenges in how these AI tools handle news content.
Which, as the study concludes, poses a real threat.
A huge threat.
To both the news industry and to you, the consumer of that information.
To all of us, really.
Many AI companies haven't even shown interest in working with news publishers.
It's true.
And even those that have are struggling with accurate citation and respecting publisher preferences.
It's a problem.
There is a glimmer of hope, though.
Okay, tell me.
Times COO Mark Howard believes that these products will only improve over time
Okay.
because of the investment and the engineering efforts going into them.
So he's optimistic.
He is.
Mm.
But his caveat is that you probably shouldn't expect 100% accuracy from free products.
Okay, so manage your expectations.
Exactly.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. And it's interesting, when the CJR reached out for comment, only OpenAI and Microsoft responded. And even then, they didn't address the specific findings.
So dodging the questions a little bit.
It feels like there's a real disconnect between the promises and the current reality.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's important to acknowledge the limitations of the study.
Always good to be aware of those.
Their methodology may not perfectly mirror typical user behavior, and they focus on externally observable factors like the robots.txt protocol.
Right.
These AI responses are dynamic. Run the same query tomorrow, and you might get a different result.
Okay, so it's a snapshot in time.
Exactly. So what's the key takeaway for the listener?
I think the key takeaway here is that while AI search offers this shiny new way to find information, it's facing some real hurdles when it comes to accurately representing and citing news sources.
Yeah.
Which can lead to misinformation and really undermine the work that news organizations are doing.
Yeah, it really underscores the importance of maintaining a healthy dose of skepticism when using AI search, especially for news.
Don't just take the answers at face value.
Exactly. Verify, verify, verify.
Yep. Use your critical thinking skills.
So the final thought that we want to leave you with is this. As AI search continues to evolve at this breakneck speed,
Yeah.
where does the responsibility lie for ensuring the accuracy and integrity of information?
It's a huge question.
Especially when it comes to news. Is it solely on the developers to fix these issues?
Right.
Or do we as users have a role to play in evaluating the information we're getting?
And what does that mean for the future of how we stay informed?
Yeah. And what about the future of journalism itself?
Lots to think about.
It is.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.